Harley Quinn has come a long way since her debut on Batman the Animated Series in 1992. She's found her way over into DC Comics as a staple character, not only appearing in team books but having numerous solo runs. She's made her way over into multiple adaptations, her own spin-off tie-in movies. She's appeared in live-action movies. She's even gotten her own animated show. Indeed, some have Harley burnout. She can appear so much. And in all of this, one of the earliest moments of her being a little tweaked, a little changed, it gets overlooked. Largely because it comes from a series which in and of itself is not overly discussed. We're talking about The Batman. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's time to discuss the version of Harley Quinn from The Batman, the animated series, not the movie. What makes this version of Harley particularly interesting is that she's reintroduced by one of her creators, Paul Dini, but she's being placed into a show that was the first animated Batman series post-TAS, which Dini had been a key component in. The thing about The Batman was that it needed to differentiate itself from its predecessor for a number of reasons. Sometimes it was because of the Bat embargo that put a stop to certain characters being used, but oftentimes it was just so that the show could have its own sense of identity. If it just used the same storylines and the tone and vibe of the previous show, then it would just be a retread. And so aside from different characters being used at points, some things were obviously different. So this is a show having a vastly different design. We're focusing on a different point of Batman's journey. And when it came to the villains who were also used, the show tried to put its own distinct spin on them. Harley Quinn as a character was in a bit of a unique position. She was created for and on Batman TAS, and she underwent a lot of evolution on that show because she was initially created to just be a one-off character. But because of popularity, she grew. A lot of her backstory as a result was developed on the show itself. She was a far more recent character with a depiction that made her stand out. While the character had made her way into the Batman TAS tie-in comics in 1993 in the Batman Adventures number 12, she had appeared in DC Comics canon years later in 1999 in Batman Harley Quinn number 1, a one-shot. In between this, her origin was penned in a story written by Paul Dini and drawn by Bruce Timm. This in February of 1994 in the one-shot Mad Love. This work would greatly flesh out the character and add layers to her relationship with the Joker, giving her clear and definitive motivations and origins. It would also become the definitive origin, the one from which all others spring. People will tweak things about it, but they tend to focus around this base, in some capacity. Mad Love would later be adapted in the new Batman Adventures in 1999 in an episode of the same name.
You and the Joker?
Righto-rooney!
While it's a very strong adaptation, it does cut some elements for time, and that ends up downplaying some of Harley's ruthless nature. Not all, but some. Lots of things happen in the Mad Love story. It's where Harley officially got a name. She became Harleen Frances Quinzel. Two of the names being nods to her voice actress, Arlene Sorkin. Her middle name was Frances, and Arlene is close to Harleen. And Quinzel came from one of Dini's former college instructors. Dini and Timm really wanted to expand upon Harley as a character. And in the process, they crafted a compelling backstory. Dini stated, "Bruce and I were talking about what if there was some sort of surprise to her origin? What if she's not just a hench girl? We came up with the idea that she had been a doctor at Arkham Asylum and the Joker had gotten into her head and worked her into being his follower. Then we thought, what if Harley's in the role of the long-suffering girlfriend?" The Batman series began airing in 2004 and ran until 2008. Harley Quinn was introduced in the 4th season in 2007. In the later seasons of the show, the Bat embargo had loosened some, and just in general, more characters were on the table even within it. Season 4 was also the season that added Robin. Because of the embargo, they'd had to add Batgirl first. Because Robin was being used in another series ongoing at the time, Teen Titans, then that ended, and then he could come over. Rules everywhere. Now this timing also meant that Harley was introduced after, in the show's canon, the Joker had already sought a child sidekick in the form of Prank, a classmate of Barbara Gordon's. That outing worked out fairly okay for him in that he survived, but he learned that working with the Joker was not as funny or fun as he thought it would be.
You were right, Joker. The best punchline is the one you don't see coming.
This actually places Harley in an interesting position in the context of this series. What that does is if one were watching in order, it creates a unique space for her in that this Joker has already expressed a desire for some kind of partner, someone more than a henchman, because it's been shown that he's kind of jealous of Batman's relationship with his sidekick, and at this point kicks. Sorry, Punch and Judy, you don't make the grade.
You two don't count. You're not sidekicks. You're goons.
And that energy kind of continues into the episode in of which Harley debuts. That episode being Two of a Kind, written as mentioned by Paul Dini. The episode was directed by Anthony Chun, and in many, many ways, it is a remix of Mad Love.
Mr. J, my favorite caller. Nice to hear from you again.
Not a retelling, but a repurposing. Not only are both origins, but Two of a Kind will pull some scenes and lines directly from Mad Love and just kind of reorder them and replace them. And by placing them in those different places, it creates a bit of a different experience alongside the changes they do implement. The title, Two of a Kind, is already an indication that things are going in a bit more of a different direction, like they're a tad more on equal footing. two peas in a pod. So how does this episode handle Harley? Two of a Kind opens with a Joker heist. Only as he starts to lose and the vigilantes gain an edge and they've captured his henchman, he worries that he's gonna miss it. He's got a watch, it's got an alarm, he needs to go. What he needs to get back in time for is his favorite show, Heart to Heart with Harley. It's a trashy show that airs at some time of day, seemingly in the evening, wherein pop psychologist Harley Quinn dishes out advice, relationship advice. It's showing this that she does have some kind of psychology degree she got online, so she still has that kind of backstory, but the setting is very different.
Are you questioning me? Everyone who has an online degree in psychology, please raise your hand.
Right away, this sets up a different dynamic than the TAS origin in that the Joker likes Harley. Or at least he likes the idea of her. He likes her show. He's a fan. He loves that she gives out terrible advice.
That girl's theories are unfounded. Her professional manners a joke, and her training, if any, is shoddy at best. I love this show!
This sequence does a few things. Some of them are little Easter eggs to character traits that become synonymous with Harley, like using the nickname Puddin'. In this case, he's using it for people who call in, not just for him, but it's there. Madlove spends a lot of time building up to how Harley changes once she decides to help the Joker after she's been manipulated into falling in love with him, as he uses her desire for acclaim and clout, as well as her paradoxically softer nature against her. This being a remix, a lot of those ideas are kind of flipped. In this, Harley has always been kind of wild and chaotic.
You promised I'd have a chance to promote the charity drive.
We want that juice, Bruce.
And a person who feels that other people don't get her.
Face it, Harley. No one's ever gonna take you seriously as a psychologist. They just can't see past my playful exterior.
This places the Joker into the role of being someone who understands her, and also because she still has that kind of psychological background, her in the position of potentially being able to understand him. So it's a bit more balanced, in a messed up way, but still. Now, Batman had to dash off earlier in the battle right after they finished, and it's because he's gonna be a guest on this sleazy show, and I don't know why he didn't vet it properly, but it's a disaster. He claims that he went on because she promised that he could talk about one of his charitable contributions, one of his charities, philanthropy. But has he never seen the show? Clearly not. This scene also recontextualizes the Call Me Harley moment, and is a nice highlight of the different vibes.
Dr. Quinzel.
Call me Harley. Everyone does.
Hi, Joan. Call me Harley. Everyone does.
In the one, Harley comes across as much more assertive and brash, while in the other, she's much more reserved. There are layers there that the Joker's gonna have to peel back, whereas in Two of a Kind, it's more like they're meeting in the middle. Another detail included here is that the Joker is a regular caller into the show under the pseudonym Mr. J. So the two already have a parasocial relationship, and he knows how to make her laugh. She already kind of likes him, or whoever she thinks that he is.
Gotta say, your mind works in interesting ways, Mr. J.
So these changes that are already in place to the setup, it alters the feel of the dynamic of the meeting. It feels more mutual. They're both already kind of intrigued before they ever meet each other. Although it still maintains the Joker's advantage because he knows who he is and he's watching her show, and there's that kind of fan element to it, which is fairly interesting, and they don't dive into it too much. Bruce is thoroughly ambushed on this show. Look how grumpy he looks. Evening ruined. More ruined than the fight with the Joker. No philanthropy for him.
Oh, civic-minded too. But let's talk about your love life.
Now, ambushing a rich and beloved public figure on live television doesn't go well for Harley. Really, Bruce? Live? Truly, this isn't inexperienced Bruce Wayne. One nice detail is that the girl that Harley pulls onto the stage for this segment in The Secret Life of Bruce Wayne is the girl he's seen ditching in the intro to the series.
We're having a nice dinner, and suddenly he's all, I have to see to some important business. Out Bruce Wayne runs, leaving me to pay the check.
Did he really leave her with the bill? That is scandalous. This is a good show. Anyway, Harley gets fired live on air. The ratings. They had already shown before this that she was on thin ice, so it doesn't come out of nowhere. The Joker sees this, and it's one of the moments where they clearly demonstrate that he still has that manipulative edge.
She'll be an emotional wreck. Someone should take advantage of that.
However, the episode once more swerves in how he goes to meet Harley. He goes to her apartment, brings a balloon. But the thing is, she's not afraid of him, and she willingly goes with him to his hideout. She's also upfront about being interested in him.
Most ladies would find my lifestyle eccentric.
Oh, I may act goofy on TV, but I'm still a doctor. Extreme personalities intrigue me.
This is in contrast to the more reserved Harley from Madlove, who downplays her ambitions.
I must admit, I was surprised you wanted to intern here at Arkham.
Well, I've always had an attraction for extreme personalities. They're more exciting, more challenging.
The Batman episode puts her ambitions and desires more fully on display, in that she's so blatant that the Joker realizes right away that she wants to do some kind of tell-all or something. But he doesn't mind her mercenary attitude. In fact, he kind of likes it.
I'll split the profits with you 50-50.
These shifts go a long way into foregrounding the more manipulative and cunning aspects of Harley's character over top of the love-struck ones in this scenario. By having her be more assertive from the start, she comes across as having more agency in the situation.
And an extreme personality like yours might be the ticket to getting back my old show, and maybe finally some respect!
And so when they do the therapy scenes, which do happen in this episode, they happen inside the Joker's hideout, there's just a bit of a different energy. It comes across more like they're actually trying to get to know each other, even though he's still probably spinning a pack of lies about what he really wants. But by the end of it, it comes across like they truly are two people who the world doesn't get, but maybe they get each other.
Guess we have a few things in common, huh?
This also highlights some of the darker aspects of Harley, in the sense that in this version, already it's clear that she feels that she's being a bit taken advantage of. People aren't taking her seriously.
It's bad enough the network said I wasn't a real psychologist. They said I was a joke.
The whole society is to blame, which is something that you see in some of the episodes of Batman the Animated Series. And like there, in the Batman She Wants to Get Even, except it's actually less playful in the Batman, even though this show is often placed arguably as the more childish show, but it has its moments. Now, playing into the title, this version of Joker and Harley have more of the us against the world dynamic that tends to be pulled out by fans of the couple, an element that began to be moved away from in the animated series as they began to introduce more and more abusive elements. And by the time of Mad Love, those are very, very stark.
I give the punchlines around here. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Mad Love has more of a focus on the tragedy of Harley, filtered through the lens of how she's fallen into this relationship, narrated from the point of view where she's already delusional. There are some darker elements to her, but that's not the focus. Two of a Kind is taking many of the elements of Mad Love, but from a different angle. That plus the changes in her positioning, like working on a TV show, not being in the hospital with him, them meeting differently, him being a fan, it changes the result into a bit of a different picture.
Night on the town!
I don't know. That seems awfully unprofessional.
Consider it research for your book.
The Harley costume is not too different from what one would anticipate from the design of this show. The blacks are dark reds, and the head is quite large. This episode, though, does take some time to highlight the idea that Joker finds her attractive, which while Mad Love hints at the sexual aspect of their relationship, it paints her more as a nuisance. Not as much in Two of a Kind.
Harley Quinn!
The two also get a montage, which I won't play because of the copyright gods, because they sing. It's always very impressive when one can maintain the character's voice while singing, so well done to Kevin Michael Richardson and Hynden Waltz. The song is also a nice contrast because it's this peppy, upbeat number, which is contrasted to their night of hijinks, which for them is a fun date night. Batman is on the case, and he's instantly able to recognize Quinzel. I mean, he does need to take off the mask in all fairness. But also, the reports when they were looking for her, everybody said that she left with the Joker willingly, so it didn't take too much detective work. World's greatest detective by not having to put too much effort into it.
What are you doing? Joker's a psychopath.
Better than what you are! A third wheel!
Harley is outed as the Joker's accomplice to the world, and her show is replaced by a Dr. Phil knockoff who is also planning to do a psychoanalysis on her, which she feels is highly inaccurate. Like Mad Love, Two of a Kind largely centers around Harley's motivations and character. In the Batman, Harley feels misunderstood, is highly driven, and is also image conscious in terms of reputation. And it's those traits that are more highlighted above her relationship and interest in the Joker. That is there, but doesn't come across as her dominant motivation. She likes him and she's having fun and they have a connection, but what really drives her in this episode is the desire for revenge against the network. There's a really interesting scene, especially when contrasted with the usual portrayals of these two, where she spurns a gift that he brings her, because he's actually just bringing her things because they've been having such a good time.
Freddy.
Oh, I wanted to give you a present for all the fun we've been having. What is it that you want?
And this is because she's angry that her public image is being smeared. This Joker actually listens to what's bothering her and what she wants, even though he does make a comment that she's more accomplice than partner.
That's what I want! To get even with those jerks!
But there's this moment where he's just watching her rage and rail against the world, where you can see that he's really into it, and he's also really into the fact that her plan and her desire is to go and hurt a bunch of people.
They should all suffer.
Sounds like a hoot!
So it is that this Harley gets to take point at the episode's end, and not against Batman, but against her former job. All of the end point is about her, and the Joker is actually helping her with her scheme, where she's the one who gets to go on TV and do the threat and all of that stuff.
Keep your seats, people. The little lady's just warming up.
Aw, that's right, Puddin'.
The episode truly looks for a moment like it's about to veer into an egalitarian relationship between the two. But it's here that the mad love elements appear a bit more directly. Not only does he threaten her for trying to tell him what to do plan-wise, at one point basically telling her that she needs to know her place, that he's just having her here because it's fun and a good time, but if she oversteps, that she's in danger. And she cowers back from him. And they do pull it back before the infamous backhand scene from Mad Love, but it harkens back to that and adds that layer of abuse back into the proceedings, wherein before it wasn't really a factor. They were more in your crazy matches my crazy mode, and also still not the best or healthiest relationship, but not what the Joker and Harley were in BTAS either. He also at this point does use her as cannon fodder and abandon her, but that's just standard for the Joker in all media pretty much. That's how this episode opened. Sorry, Punch and Judy. I really hope they get paid a lot. They probably don't. Maybe they do it for the lulz. So it is that both episodes end quite similarly. Minus Harley being badly injured over in Mad Love, they both end with her being captured and questioning her relationship with the Joker.
The Joker doesn't care about anyone but himself. He never has, and he never will.
You'd think a psychologist would know better.
Batman also lectures Harley about the Joker not caring about her in both, but at different points.
You little fool. The Joker doesn't love anything except himself.
However, at the end of both episodes, the Joker is able to win Harley's affection once more with a note. In the Batman, this leads to peals of laughter on her part, and it also pulls out to see that the Joker is laughing somewhere in Gotham too, so they still have that kind of connection. The note in that episode is on a whoopee cushion, not a note with a rose, though both episodes feature each item. And that was how Harley Quinn was added to the Batman. Two of a Kind is a solid episode in its own right. It's a fun Joker episode, and it's a bit unique in that it changes things up by having someone else in the spotlight for a bit. And there are parts of it that are pretty funny, although of course mileage may vary. What makes this episode really fascinating, however, is in comparing it to its predecessor series, specifically Mad Love, since it's directly referencing it. Both are origins for Harley Quinn, but they're presented in different contexts. The Batman's is coming into a world where Harley's already established outside, but not really in this series, which already has a different take on the Joker. BTAS's version had the character be featured for years without an origin or explanation for how she was with the Joker, whereas the Batman is starting off with that explanation. It also has to do so differently to avoid being a retread. It's intriguing how a few tweaks can give such a different vibe to the relationship and Harley as a character. But they don't feel alien, they still feel like they're Harley and the Joker, both independently and together. Harley's far less sympathetic in the Batman, and her and the Joker have a better, in quotes, though still far from ideal relationship, but the two actually do seem to like each other. And also, Harley's level of like is less obsessive. In fact, he's the one who comes in with more of an interest first. Despite taking on a costume from his display rack, this Harley seems far more independent overall. This version stays true to the idea of the concept of this relationship, but presents it in such a way that it shows a different lens in of which it could be viewed, though it veers back towards the typical by the end. In a way, it's a shame it didn't go harder into its unique elements. Mad Love gives Two of a Kind a frame for the relationship, but it also traps it when the choice is made to recreate the same ending dynamic, because the rest of the episode was veering away from it. And so as a result, it feels familiar but a bit abrupt, especially as this is her first appearance in the Batman. It actually would have been neat to see them on more equal footing overall, or a Joker who is more into her and as a result treated her better and hence made her even more dangerous. A Joker who's hyping her up, egging her on, bringing out the worst elements of herself. That would have been an interesting angle. Still, for what this episode presents and how it is, it's well done, and it can be assumed that what was brought forward by Dini were the parts he found important or the best character-wise, or whatever discussions happened behind the scenes. Not all of the elements fit together quite as well as Mad Love in terms of the parts they've pulled, But there are some really fun moments in this remix. And it's an entertaining thought exercise to take a look at how elements from Mad Love were taken and reordered/repurposed and the impact it had, the strengths and the weaknesses, some kernels of what could have ended up being a dissimilar take. Though if that were the case, the meaning of the relationship would have shifted at that point. Less a woman in an abusive relationship and more toxic couple in love, toxic power couple, world beware. As it stands, this is a fairly fun episode, and also a more overtly ruthless start to Harley. This Harley started off the rails. Harley doesn't appear much in this series overall, but the two do have another fun romp where they're more focused or foregrounded in the metal face of comedy in season 5. She appears in a couple of other episodes, but it's more cameo-esque. And by the later seasons, the Batman didn't veer as much into being as different as it had in the earlier seasons, although it still had its moments. Harley appeared more in the tie-in comics, The Batman Strikes. Those play it much closer to the BTAS relationship, and they also do things such as introduce her to Ivy. She follows more of that blueprint and layout. The Batman's Harley has some strong and fun elements, but not enough to the point where she automatically stands out. But she is an interesting version. One who retains the core but also has a bit more agency out of the gate. Like many elements of the Batman, it deserved a bit more attention than it got. If for no other reason than to see a creator come back only a few years post-crafting an iconic origin and do a remix on it. Not only of the character, but of that very story. But all of these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. What do you think of the Batman's Harley Quinn? Interesting? Mid? Don't care? Did you like this take on her and the Joker? Did you catch the remixed Mad Love elements? Do you wish they leaned more heavily into a bit of a different take? Or do you feel that the relationship should never be depicted with any positive elements? Share your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Is there an episode of something you want to take a look at? Leave that down there too. Thanks so much for taking some time today spent discussing comics or comic adjacent things with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.